A black park custodian returned her wallet. The white CEO returned to herself. The October wind scattered crimson leaves across Riverside Park as Aiyana Whitehorse rushed through the winding path, her designer heels clicking against the concrete. Late for the board meeting that would determine her company's future, she clutched her leather briefcase while frantically searching her purse. No, she muttered, realizing her wallet was missing. Koda Washington looked up from raking leaves, watching the frantic woman in the expensive suit. He'd found a wallet 20 minutes earlier near the fountain, tucked beneath a bench where morning joggers often rested. "Excuse me, ma'am," he called out, his deep voice cutting through the autumn air. Aiyana barely glanced his direction, assuming he wanted directions or was asking for money. She'd learned to avoid eye contact with park workers. Her assistant had warned her about safety in public spaces. "I'm really in a hurry," she said curtly, quickening her pace. Koda jogged after her, wallet in hand. "Ma'am, I think you dropped this." She stopped abruptly, turning to see the tall black man in custodial coveralls holding her missing wallet. Suspicion flickered across her face. How did he get it? Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios. "That's mine," she said carefully, extending her hand while maintaining distance. Koda smiled warmly, handing it over without hesitation. "Found it by the fountain. Everything should still be there. Credit cards, cash, that photo of the golden retriever." Aiyana's eyes widened. He'd looked through it, but as she quickly checked, everything was indeed there, including the $300 cash she'd withdrawn yesterday. Thank you," she managed, genuinely surprised. "Have a good day, ma'am. Hope your meeting goes well." She stared after him as he returned to his work, confused by his kindness and her own assumptions. "Hello, my Stop Racism family. Thank you for tuning in today. Before we dive deeper into this beautiful love story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your country and state in the comments below. Also, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the story so far? Do you believe love can truly conquer prejudice? Let us know in the comments. We love reading them, and trust me, your words motivate us to keep making these videos. Let's make this video reach at least 50 comments. Your support means the world to us, and it drives us to create even more meaningful content for you. So don't forget to comment, share, and keep spreading love. Aiyana couldn't concentrate during her board meeting. While presenting quarterly projections, her mind kept drifting to the park custodian who'd returned her wallet untouched. In her world, people always wanted something. Favors, investments, connections. "Aiyana, the Henderson merger?" Board member Koda Sterling prompted. She snapped back to attention, delivering her prepared remarks about acquiring the struggling tech company. But internally, she was bothered by her own reaction to the morning's encounter. That evening, her sister Sequoia called during dinner at her penthouse apartment. "You seem distracted. Rough board meeting?" "No, something else." Aiyana found herself describing the wallet incident, carefully omitting her initial suspicions. "Wait, let me get this straight." Sequoia laughed. "A stranger returned your wallet with cash intact, and you're upset about it?" "I'm not upset. I'm just surprised by human decency." "Sis, you need to get out of that corporate bubble." Aiyana hung up feeling defensive. She'd worked hard to build Whitehorse Industries from the ground up after their father's death. Success required caution, strategic thinking, and yes, sometimes assumptions about people's motivations. But she couldn't shake the image of Koda's genuine smile, the way he'd mentioned her dog's photo like it was natural to notice such things. Most people in her circle never looked beyond surface appearances. She found herself wondering about his story, his life beyond the park uniform. 3 days later, Aiyana detoured through Riverside Park on her way to lunch, telling herself she needed fresh air. She spotted Koda near the children's playground, patiently explaining to a lost toddler how they'd find his parents. "See that big oak tree? We'll wait right there where Mommy can see us," he said gently, lifting the crying child. Within minutes, a frantic mother appeared, embracing her son with relief. "Thank you so much. I only looked away for a second." "Happens to the best of us," Koda assured her. "Kids are quick." Aiyana watched from a distance, noting his natural ease with people. When he finally noticed her approaching, his face brightened with recognition. "Wallet lady, how'd the meeting go?" She was struck that he remembered, that he'd wondered about her day. "Well, actually. The board approved my acquisition proposal. Congratulations. That sounds important. It is. She paused, feeling awkward. I wanted to thank you properly. Maybe I could buy you lunch? Koda's eyebrows raised slightly. That's kind, but not necessary. I was just doing what anyone should do. Please, I insist. He studied her face, seeing something vulnerable beneath the polished exterior. All right, but somewhere casual. I'm not exactly dressed for fine dining. Aiyana realized she'd never eaten anywhere casual in this neighborhood. Her world consisted of upscale restaurants where deals were made over expensive wine. You choose, she said, surprising herself. Koda led her to Mape's Diner, a small family-owned restaurant 3 blocks from the park. The vinyl booths and laminated menus were a stark contrast to Aiyana's usual lunch spots, but the warmth and laughter filling the space felt oddly appealing. Koda, called an elderly Native American woman from behind the counter. Your usual table? Thanks, Nokomis. This is Aiyana. The woman's knowing smile made Aiyana wonder if Koda often brought women here, though something told her this was unusual for him too. So, Aiyana said once they'd ordered, you know my name from my credit cards, but I never got yours properly. Koda Washington. And before you ask, yes, I chose Washington when I aged out of foster care. Seemed appropriately American. His matter-of-fact tone touched something in her chest. Foster care? Since I was 8. Parents died in a car accident. He sipped his coffee casually, as if discussing the weather. The park job's temporary while I finish my engineering degree at night school. Aiyana felt her assumptions crumbling. Engineering? Environmental systems. I want to design sustainable urban spaces, parks that serve communities better. His eyes lit up with passion. Places where kids like I was can feel safe, where families can connect regardless of their zip code. She found herself leaning forward, genuinely interested. That's incredible. How close are you to graduating? 2 semesters. Been saving every penny for the final push. The pride in his voice was unmistakable. Here was someone building something meaningful through pure determination, while she'd inherited her father's company and contacts. What about you? He asked. Besides running board meetings and losing wallets, despite herself, Aiyana laughed. A real laugh, not the polished chuckle she used in business situations. I run Whitehorse Industries. We acquire struggling companies and restructure them. Save them or strip them? The blunt question caught her off guard. Both, depending on what's needed. Koda nodded thoughtfully. Must be hard, making decisions that affect so many lives. It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the weight of her responsibilities, rather than just the power and prestige. Over the following week, Aiyana found herself thinking about Koda constantly. His question about saving versus stripping companies haunted her during the Henderson merger negotiations. She'd always justified her business decisions as necessary for economic efficiency, but suddenly she was considering the human cost. Her assistant Chenoa knocked on her office door Friday afternoon. The Henderson employees are requesting a meeting about the merger terms. Schedule it for next week. And Chenoa? Aiyana hesitated. What do you know about environmental engineering programs in the city? Chenoa's eyebrows raised. Personal interest. Research for a potential investment. That evening, instead of her usual wine and financial reports, Aiyana found herself walking through Riverside Park. She told herself she was getting exercise, but her steps naturally led toward the area where Koda usually worked. She found him sitting on a bench, textbooks spread around him, studying under a park lamp. Bit late for homework, she said, approaching carefully. He looked up, smiling. Calculus waits for no one. What brings you here after dark? Couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind. The merger? She was surprised he remembered. Among other things, Koda closed his textbook, giving her his full attention. Want to talk about it? The simple offer nearly undid her. When was the last time someone had asked about her thoughts rather than her decisions? I keep wondering if I'm helping people or just shuffling money around. What does your gut tell you? That's the problem. I've spent so long thinking strategically. I'm not sure I trust my gut anymore. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights reflect off the pond. You know what I think? Koda said finally. I think you care more than you let yourself admit. That's why you're out here questioning everything. Saturday morning brought Aiyana back to the park, this time intentionally. She found Koda replanting damaged flower beds near the entrance. his hands gentle with the fragile stems. "You're becoming a regular," he said without looking up. "I like it here. It's peaceful. Different from boardrooms, I imagine." She knelt beside him, surprising them both. "Can I help?" Koda handed her a small shovel, showing her how to prepare the soil. Working side by side, dirt under her manicured nails, Aiyana felt more grounded than she had in years. "Tell me about your family," she said. "Not much to tell. My parents were good people. Dad was a mechanic. Mom taught elementary school. They believed in helping others, building community." His voice grew soft. "I try to honor that. Mine built an empire," Aiyana said quietly. "Dad was brilliant, ruthless when necessary. He taught me that sentiment was weakness in business. What do you think?" I thought he was right. "Until recently." Koda looked at her directly. "What changed?" "You did." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. They locked eyes across the flower bed, soil-stained hands inches apart. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility and fear. "Aiyana," he said carefully, "we come from very different worlds. I'm starting to think that might not matter as much as I used to believe." Koda reached over, gently brushing dirt from her cheek. The tender gesture sent warmth spiraling through her chest. "What about your world? Your company? Your people?" She understood his unspoken question. What about the fact that he was black, working class, still climbing toward his dreams, while she sat atop an inherited fortune? "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I want to find out." Monday morning's executive meeting shattered Aiyana's weekend peace. Board member Koda Sterling cornered her after reviewing the Henderson acquisition terms. "You're being too generous with the severance packages. This isn't charity, Aiyana. These people have families, Koda. They deserve transition support. Since when do you care about individual employees? Your father would never—" "My father isn't here," she cut him off, surprising herself with her firmness. That evening, her sister Sequoia visited with wine and concern. "Mom called. She's worried about you." "Why?" "Apparently you've been seen around Riverside Park, a lot, with someone inappropriate." Aiyana's blood chilled. "Inappropriate how?" "You know how Mom is. Anyone not from our circle is suspect." Sequoia studied her sister's face. "Is there something you want to tell me?" "I'm making a friend." "Since when is that newsworthy?" "When the friend is a black park worker and you're CEO of a major corporation." The blunt statement hung between them. Aiyana felt the weight of her family's expectations, the company's reputation, the social circle she'd never questioned before. So, what if he is? So everything, Aiyana. Think about the optics. Think about the board. Think about what people will say. Maybe I'm tired of thinking about what people will say. Sequoia's expression softened. "I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying it's reality. Be careful." After her sister left, Aiyana stood at her penthouse window overlooking the city, feeling more isolated than ever. Below, the park where Koda worked was just a distant patch of green among the concrete and steel. The next evening, Aiyana found Koda at the park again, but this time he seemed distant, focused on his textbooks with unusual intensity. "Long day?" she asked, sitting beside him. "You could say that." He didn't look up. "Had an interesting conversation with my supervisor today." Aiyana's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About keeping appropriate boundaries with park visitors. Apparently, someone's been asking questions about my interactions with certain prominent individuals." "Koda, I'm sorry. I never meant. It's not your fault." He finally met her eyes, but it made me think about what we're doing here. "What are we doing?" "I don't know, and that's the problem." He closed his textbook, turning to face her fully. "I care about you, Aiyana. More than I should, probably." Her heart raced. "I care about you too, but caring isn't enough, is it? You have a company to run, a reputation to maintain. I have 2 semesters left and a career to build. Those are just circumstances." "No, they're not." His voice was gentle but firm. "They're everything. Your family, your board, your social circle. They're never going to accept a relationship between us. And I can't ask you to give up everything you've worked for." "What if I want to make that choice?" "Do you? Really? Or are you just rebelling against expectations?" The question hit like a physical blow, because part of her wondered the same thing. Was this real, or was she just desperate to feel something authentic in her carefully controlled life? "I don't know," she whispered. "But I know being with you feels more real than anything else in my world." Koda reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Then we need to figure out if real is enough to build something on." How's this story hitting you so far? Tell us in the comments. If you're loving it, type 1. If not, type 0. We want to know what you think. Friday brought the crisis Aiyana had been dreading. An emergency board meeting was called after a gossip blog published photos of her and Koda at the diner with the headline, "Whitehorse Heiress's Surprising Romance." The boardroom felt like a tribunal as she faced 12 stern faces. "This is a disaster for our image," Dakota Sterling declared. "Our clients expect a certain level of propriety from leadership. My personal life doesn't affect my business judgment, doesn't it?" Board member Wakanda Thompson slid a tablet across the table. "The Henderson employees you've been protecting with generous severance packages. Is this emotional decision-making related to your new perspective on social justice?" Aiyana's chest tightened. They were connecting her growing empathy to her relationship with Koda, painting both as weaknesses. "I make business decisions based on long-term value, not short-term profit. Your father built this company on pragmatic choices, not sentimental ones," Sterling continued. "If you can't separate personal feelings from professional responsibilities, perhaps you're not ready for this level of leadership." The threat was clear: conform or lose everything. That evening, Aiyana drove to Koda's neighborhood for the first time. The modest apartment complex was a world away from her penthouse, but when he answered the door in jeans and a Georgetown University t-shirt, her heart skipped. "They know about us," she said without preamble. He stepped aside, letting her into his small but tidy apartment. Engineering textbooks covered every surface, and photos of park improvement projects decorated the walls. "I saw the article. I'm sorry. They threatened my position, said I'm compromising business judgment with sentiment." Koda's jaw tightened. "And what did you tell them?" "Nothing. Yet." She looked around his space, seeing his dreams made tangible. "But they're not wrong about one thing. I am changing. Since meeting you, I can't make decisions the same way. I see faces behind the numbers now. Is that bad?" "It is if I lose the company. Then I can't help anyone." They stood in his small living room, the weight of impossible choices hanging between them. "Maybe they're right," Koda said quietly. "Maybe we're too different. Maybe I'm holding you back from who you're supposed to be." "Don't." Her voice broke. "Don't make this decision for both of us. Someone has to be practical here, Aiyana. I love you." The words hung in the air, like a confession and a goodbye. "I love you too," she whispered. "But I don't know how to choose between loving you and losing everything else." Aiyana spent the weekend in agony, avoiding calls from her family and board members. Sunday morning found her walking through Riverside Park, needing to see the place where everything had changed. She found Koda at his usual spot, but he wasn't alone. A small group of children surrounded him as he showed them how to identify different trees and plants. Their eager questions and his patient answers painted a picture of the teacher he'd naturally become. "Mr. Koda, why do leaves change colors?" a little girl asked. "Because they're getting ready for winter. The tree stops feeding them, so their true colors show through." Watching him with the children, Aiyana realized something profound. Koda wasn't just changing her perspective on business. He was showing her what leadership really meant. Not commanding from boardrooms, but serving communities, nurturing growth, helping others flourish. When the children's parents collected them, Koda noticed Aiyana sitting on a distant bench. "How long have you been there? Long enough to see who you really are?" She stood, decision crystallizing in her chest. "I called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." "Aiyana, don't do anything rash." "It's not rash. It's the most rational decision I've ever made." She took his hands. "I'm going to tell them that my personal life is none of their business, but my business decisions are absolutely their concern. I'm restructuring Henderson to preserve jobs while improving efficiency. I'm implementing community investment programs, and I'm doing it because it's right, not because I'm dating you. And if they vote you out, then I'll start something new. Maybe something that aligns with environmental engineering and community development." Koda's eyes widened. "You'd give up everything?" "I'd be choosing everything that matters." She stepped closer. "I love you, Koda. Not because you're convenient or safe, but because you've shown me who I can become. Will you take this risk with me?" He cupped her face gently. "I love you too. And yes, I'll take any risk if it means building something real with you." Their kiss was soft, certain, and full of promise. Monday's board meeting began with tension thick enough to cut. Aiyana entered with a confidence that surprised even herself. "Before we discuss my personal life," she began, "let's review quarterly performance. We're up 12% in revenue, and client satisfaction scores have improved significantly since implementing more ethical acquisition practices." The numbers spoke for themselves, but Sterling wasn't backing down. "Performance aside, this relationship creates liability issues. What happens when it ends badly? What happens to your judgment then? With respect to Koda, you've been divorced 3 times. Should we question your judgment based on your personal relationships?" The boardroom fell silent. "Furthermore," Aiyana continued, "I'm proposing a new division focused on sustainable community development. We'll partner with environmental engineers and urban planners to create projects that serve underserved communities while generating long-term value." Board member Wakanda Thompson leaned forward. "You want to hire your boyfriend's colleagues? I want to hire the best talent for emerging markets. If that includes people I know personally, so be it. I'm not asking for approval of my relationship. I'm informing you of strategic business decisions." The vote was closer than expected, 8-4 in favor of maintaining her position with requirements for quarterly reviews. That evening, Koda waited anxiously outside the Whitehorse Industries building. When Aiyana emerged, her smile told him everything. "Still employed?" "Barely. But yes." She took his arm. "Want to help me design a sustainable community development division? Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership in business and everything else." 6 months later, Riverside Park hosted its first community development fair. Koda, now graduated and employed as lead environmental engineer for Whitehorse Community Solutions, guided visitors through displays of sustainable urban planning projects. Aiyana watched from the information booth, marveling at how naturally he connected with people from all backgrounds. The morning's turnout exceeded their projections. Families, seniors, teenagers, and business leaders all engaged in conversations about improving their neighborhoods. "Proud of your boyfriend?" Sequoia asked, appearing beside her. "Proud of my partner," Aiyana corrected. "And yes, incredibly. Mom's coming around, you know, slowly." "I know. Dad would have taken longer, but I think even he would appreciate Koda's work ethic." Sequoia smiled. "You're different, happier, more yourself." "I feel like myself for the first time in years." Near the children's demonstration area, an elderly woman approached Koda with obvious skepticism. "Young man, what makes you think these fancy plans will work in real neighborhoods?" "Because I grew up in real neighborhoods, ma'am. I know what families need. Safe spaces, economic opportunities, and community connections. These aren't fancy plans. They're practical solutions." The woman studied his earnest face, then nodded slowly. "All right, tell me more." Aiyana smiled, remembering her own initial skepticism. Love hadn't just conquered prejudice between them. It had opened their eyes to possibilities neither had imagined alone. As the afternoon sun filtered through autumn leaves, Koda caught her eye across the crowd. His smile was the same one that had stopped her heart that first morning when he'd returned her wallet. But now she understood. He hadn't just returned her property that day. He'd helped her return to herself. "Ready to go home?" he asked, reaching her side as the fair wound down. "With you?" "Always." They walked through Riverside Park hand in hand, past the fountain where it all began, toward whatever came next. The trees around them were changing colors, revealing their true beauty as they prepared for new seasons of growth.